Welcome back to Actionable Intelligence. I'm Eric Greitens. This is the show that respects your intelligence. We honor you as a citizen, and we're proud to bring you people with strong opinions. And today we're honored to be joined by a man who has carved a permanent place in rock and roll history as the ultimate guitar shredding showman, selling more than 40 million albums in the process. He's a lifelong outdoorsman who believes in preserving the great outdoors for future generations of hunters and fishermen. He was honored as Michigan's Conservationist of the Year and one of the top 25 most influential people, according to Outdoor Life magazine. He's a strong political ally of President Trump and the Republican Party, campaigning for the president in both the 2016 and 2020 elections. In fact, you might say it's some of the only times in his career where he was the opening act.
God bless real Michigan. God bless real America. God bless the greatest president in our lifetime, Donald Trump. We will make America great again, and we will make Michigan great again. Won't we? Live it up. Have a great hunting season.
You may know him as the Motor City Madman or the host of the top-rated podcast Spirit Campfire. But here on Actionable Intelligence, we just call him a friend of the show, Ted Nugent. Ted, thank you so much for joining us today, man. I know you campaigned with the president and his team, and I want to talk about that in just a bit. But first, it's the holiday season, and one of the things that you've been involved in years past has been Hunt for the Hungry, where you go out and you encourage hunters to gather and donate food to local food shelters. Talk with our audience a little bit about why that's been so important to you.
Well, there's no more powerful healing than nature, Eric, and I've been doing it for 72 years, clean and sober. And we started a Hunters for the Hungry program probably 31 years ago, and in different states, Sportsmen Against Hunger, Hunters for the Hungry, and we donate literally, Eric, over 250,000, 250, no, I take that back, 250 million, 250 million hot meals of venison every year for 31 plus years to soup kitchens and homeless shelters. And there's no better, more nutritious, more delicious, more natural organic protein than venison. So we're doing God's work, and it's what the Nugent family eats exclusively, at least for the last 40 some years. But I've always been a hunter, a fisherman, and a trapper. And those dynamics of participating hands-on with God's miraculous creation, I tell you, that's how I get high. That's why I've remained clean and sober. And that's why my guitar doesn't gently weep, because there's a tooth, fang, and claw Aboriginal dynamic to this lifestyle, and it's perfect.
Beautiful. And Ted, first, I want to know, what'd you get this morning?
You know, I got three very tired dogs. Coco is a canine German Shepherd, the greatest duck hunting German Shepherd in the world. Sadie is 6 years old today. She's my yellow lab. And Happy is my blackmouth cur Catahoula yellow lab. We got 5 beautiful ducks. And Eric, I could have cried. I got a triple on the first volley, which is a miracle. And all 3 dogs went in. Coco went really far. She's a German Shepherd. And here comes my beloved dogs with 3 ducks swimming through the murky pond, and they brought them to Dad. You're talking to the happiest guitar player on the planet this morning. So I got some beautiful ducks, and they're delicious.
That's a beautiful start to the morning. And I want to talk about your conservation background for a minute, because for those who don't know, you were named Michigan's Conservationist of the Year. You've also called President Trump the most conservation-focused president in history. For our viewers who may not have grown up hunting and fishing, give them a sense for the important role that hunters and fishermen play in conservation and why that's so important.
Well, I'll summarize it as simply as I could, because I go on forever celebrating the dynamic of this outdoor lifestyle. Hunting, fishing, and trapping is perfect conservation. It's the most positive environmental benefit mankind can participate in. Ultimately, not only is it fun because it's get up early in the morning with the dogs, or you climb your tree with your bow and arrow. It's really a lot of fun. It's incredible sport because it's so challenging. You have to practice, aim small, miss small, the samurai spirit of excellence with your bow and arrow, your shotgun, or your rifle. And it's the ultimate meat. I mean, it's the ultimate diet in the world. You want organic, you're talking to the organic daddy here. And it's conservation. But let me summarize it by saying that at the end of the day, everybody's quality of life, air, soil, and water quality, can only come from one place: wildlife habitat that is balanced and productive. And wildlife habitat that is balanced, healthy, thriving, and productive can only be accomplished if you reduce and harvest the surplus each year that God has made renewable and make room for next year's production of fawns and cubs and calves and the rabbits and the pheasant, the quail and the grouse, the woodcock and the squirrels, everybody. They're going to have babies, but the ground is not going to expand. So you harvest during the natural season, Thanksgiving of harvest. And while you're doing it, I got to tell you, I'm 72 years old. I can outrun, outjump, outclimb, outshoot any 20-year-old out there. That might be bragging, but it's actually very accurate because it cleanses the soul. It fortifies your batteries. It gives you a spiritual, reinvigorated energy. And again, what is the accomplishment? Clean air, soil, and water from the habitat that we pay trillions of dollars for our licenses and travel and food and lodging and groceries and permits and fees and the taxes we put on ourselves that goes to wildlife habitat. If everybody who has a breath of fresh air today really knew where it came from, they'd say, "Thank you, Uncle Ted. Thank you, hunters, fishermen, and trappers, for providing me clean air, soil, and water from this precious wild ground that you manage perfectly."
And it is precious. It is beautiful. It's something that I wish every American had the opportunity to experience. And you know, Ted, one of the other things that you've been a big supporter of for a long time, and that might even be an understatement, is the Second Amendment. In fact, you go back, I think it was almost 20 years ago, you wrote your book titled God, Guns, and Rock and Roll. You've been supporting the Second Amendment and people's right to gun ownership for decades now. Why is this so important to you?
Well, life is important. God gave me the gift of life, and he gave my wife Shemaine the gift of life. He gave my children the gift of life. What could be more duty-bound than safeguarding those gifts from evil? And we all know that evil exists. In fact, evil is being let out of jail by the leftists every day. Evil is being encouraged and compensated by the left every day. So we have an absolute moral, intellectual, and I believe spiritual obligation, Eric, to defend ourselves from the evil that exists. It has always existed. It's always going to exist. And if you are unarmed and helpless, you are unarmed and helpless. And evil loves unarmed and helpless victims. So the "don't tread on me" battle cry is as instinctual as motherhood, entrepreneurism, freedom, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And you can't do it if you're unarmed and helpless. And I can show you a whole bunch of dead bodies that were unarmed and helpless. So that's a bad choice to make. So I would recommend you remain cocked, locked, and ready to rock the Glock, Doc, because your life is worth protecting. And without the Second Amendment, some punk can do to you whatever he damn well pleases.
Folks, we'll be back with Ted Nugent right after this. Welcome back to Actionable Intelligence. We are continuing our conversation with Ted Nugent. Hey, Ted, you spent quite a bit of time out there campaigning with the president and his team. It's an experience that most Americans couldn't have. Give them a sense for what that was like.
Well, first of all, I'm humbled beyond description, Eric. And when I am out campaigning for the Constitution, God, family, country, law, and order, which is what this great president represents, I really feel a spirit of all those American families that celebrate God, family, country, work ethic, law, and order, you know, all that controversial stuff. What a crazy time we're in. So I'm telling you, I'm a tuned in guy. If you're going to kill a deer with a bow and arrow, you got to be approaching omniscience. And I'm not omniscient, but sometimes I get damn close. I absorb such a force of energy and positive spirit from this great man that is accented, accentuated, and fanned by those working hard, playing hard Americans that show up at every one of these rallies for this great president and for the great president's great son. I was out there with Don Jr. also. But I think the reason they invited the old goofy guitar player is because I've always stood up for being the best that you can be, to make sacrifices and take risks so that you're in the asset column. You're not comfortably numb and draining from your family. You're not lounging and floundering so that you drain from your neighborhood. You get up early and you be the best that you can be, and you're productive. And at the end of the day, you're worn out because you put your heart and soul into everything you did, and you're in the asset column. That's what this president represents. And I already knew it going in before the 2016 campaign. But boy, oh boy, even though my core beliefs are unmovable, Eric, they've never been stronger because of the people and the spirit of this great president. It was so fortifying and undeniable. Talking about self-evident truth. That's what I witnessed every night, and I was moved. If I was a dangerous man before the campaign, I'm even more dangerous now because I will not bend, I will not compromise, and this is the greatest president in our lives because he takes a chance. He's the man in the arena.
And Ted, give us, our viewers, a sense too, like when you were on the road with the president in the days leading up to the election, I'm sure you saw some really remarkable sights. You talked to some incredible Americans. What stood out to you most? What did you learn about the country seeing those rallies up close?
Well, Eric, I'm a little spoiled as it is because I've always been a hunter, and there's nothing like a hunting camp. It's virtually uninhibited dialogue and exchange of beliefs and ideas from every imaginable perspective, from sincere and emotional, freedom-based quality of life dialogue to just crazy fun stuff. And that is the essence of the American family, I believe, is that uninhibitedness. They're not afraid to express themselves, though we see a lot of that nowadays because of the big tech censorship out there and the suppression of controversial ideas or counter ideas. But what the time with the president reminded me, and again, refortified with me, is that American demand of freedom. It's not just the celebration of freedom. We demand that freedom. We know what's in the Constitution. We know what's in the Bill of Rights. I'm just a guitar player, but I'm not being too cocky here. I could have wrote that. I could have wrote the self-evident truths that I'm allowed to say and I'm allowed to do, and that I get to have arms, not just the king. I get to have security from intrusive governments. I know that stuff. I know it in my heart and soul. And those people are alive and well. And I got to tell you, they are me. I am them. I hunt with them. I hang with them. I rock with them. I communicate with them. I do charity work for every imaginable military charity, law enforcement charity, first responders charity, children's charities, conservation charities. And I'm surrounded by these great, giving, loving, generous, caring people every day of my life. And those words describe the spirit, the essence of a Donald Trump supporter. And they're everywhere, Eric. California, we got them. New Jersey, New York, Illinois, Michigan. Michigan used to be the arsenal of democracy. Now it's a political suburb of San Francisco. It's heartbreaking. But the real working hard, playing hard American families, Eric, they're everywhere. That's why he drew the largest crowds in the history of politics and heard for the first time, Eric, in the history of politics, where 20,000 people said something they've never said to a politician before. We love you. We love you, they said to the president. What does that tell you?
Well, and you know, one of the things too that I love about what you do on your podcast as well, Ted, is that you're talking to real Americans, you're talking to interesting people, you're letting these voices come out. And one of the things, I want to turn to censorship in a minute. But one of the things that you've also done is that through this incredibly crazy summer that we had, where you had politicians coming out talking about defunding the police or people who are dishonoring the police, you and I, we've always stayed incredibly strong in our support for law enforcement. Talk with our viewers a little bit about why that is so important right now to have the backs of our law enforcement officers.
Well, you know, again, I hope people can bear with me because I'm just a guitar player. But what have I talked about with you today, Eric? Where does quality of life come from? It comes from conservation, clean air, soil, and water. It comes from the hunting, fishing, trapping, conservation duty. Where does quality of life come from? Taking good care of yourself. I've mentioned I've been clean and sober for 72 years. I think this is an important battle cry. And now, what is equally important to quality of air, soil, and water and being the best that you can be? Being free of crime, which is pivotal upon the warriors, the sheepdogs, the heroes.
That was Ted Nugent talking with me earlier today about the heroism of law enforcement.